No, like there's actually a non-trivial chance that this video is gonna just end up in trash because there's gonna be no difference whatsoever. Hello there and welcome to a video where I actually try to figure out if I learned anything. I've been using makeup since I was like, I'm not sure, like a full face kind of thing wasn't until I was at like actual university. So that's something like not even 10 years, but like some weird tries and like, here and there a little bit. That was like way before that when I was like 15, I think. So it's been quite a couple years of me using makeup. At the beginning, we didn't really have anything like a beauty YouTube. It was kind of starting off, not even that, it was like non-existent. Then it kicked off, and then after a couple years of trial and error, you actually learned that not everything people tell you on the internet actually may work for you. You kind of figure out your own way how to do makeup if you want to, and that's where I'm today. So I thought it might be fun to kind of go over some of my old habits and show you and tell you how I improved them to look a little bit less like a cake and a little bit more like an actual human being. So let's start off. And listen, I'm not a makeup artist or anything, okay? This is just a regular person using makeup as a regular person going to work and stuff. So I just want to like tell you what really helped me feel better and hopefully look better than I used to when I was starting off with makeup. Some of these tips you will probably know, some of these tips are maybe not even tips, but everyone is different, everyone's level of like knowledge in makeup is different, and I thought why not just show you, okay? I don't have any better ideas today, so let's go. First, I'm gonna put my hair out of my face. That's a great idea, thank you. First, of course, is skin prep. If you do your makeup in the morning, you can just go straight on your skincare. Some people really like primers, some people hate them. I say if you use the right primer in the combination with your skin and your foundation, it can do a whole lot of work for you. However, if you don't, it can mess you up like badly. So the thing I want to talk about is actually like priming for your skin type, which I did not used to do because I didn't even really know my skin type. So I thought maybe I can just do like a left side of my face like the old-fashioned way and like this side of my face the way I do it now, basically. See if anything really improved. So, unlike the old-timer side of my face, I would usually go in with like all things matte. Because in my head and on the internet, I mostly read that, matte foundations, oil-free, long-wearing, it's not gonna break your makeup apart and stuff like that. So much wrong with all those thoughts. However, let's just find a matte primer and prime my face with a matte one. So, do I even have a matte primer anymore? I don't think I have a matte primer. So, like, the closest thing to that I have is the H&M Smoothing Face Primer. I'll go ahead and use this one. It is like a smoothing primer, which is not dewy or sticky or anything. It was just kind of matte, and it's supposed to, like, smooth out your face. I may have applied a bit too much. But I was just obsessed with, like, mattifying my face, making it like flawless and perfect. There was this time, where people thought that matte is everything, and that's what I would usually use, something a little bit more on the matte side, something a little bit like smoothing, or those like very silicone-y primers that are supposed to like make your skin super smooth, and they don't really work like that. So, and for like my regular makeup-y side, I would always double prime. So I would do a primer for my pores specifically, and then primer for like the rest of my face that needs the hydration. So for my pore filling primer, I'm gonna use the one from Catrice. This primer is like everything. I use it all the time. Like mostly this area right here is where I have the largest pores and where it like really bothers me. So there's that. And then for my like regular primer, I would usually go in with something hydrating that has like the lasting hydration, but there's something that is also a little bit sticky. I'm gonna use the Essence Fix and Last Jelly Primer, which is exactly one of those primers. So after many years of thinking that my foundation is breaking apart and looking cakey and horrible because my skin is too oily, I actually found out it's right the opposite, that my skin was too dry and I was putting all the matte stuff on it and it was breaking apart my foundation and it looked horrible. And yeah, I just kind of found out. So really know your skin type, and even the skincare you're putting underneath. We're primed. This is how we're looking. This is my hydrating side, and this is my matte side. Now, foundation. Of course, we believed that matte full coverage is everything, and everyone was using it, and you just had to get one too. And there's nothing more authentic than actually using a foundation you used to use back in the day. And my holy grail was the Fenty Pro Filter Soft Matte Longwear Foundation. I haven't used it in a while now, but I have like a new one, I think, actually. Even though this may not be like my favorite foundation now, it's a great like longwear foundation. But if you have like kind of oily, normal to oily skin, maybe not really normal to dry, I feel like for me now it's gonna be like way too dry, but we gotta try. So I would usually do like 2 pumps for my whole face. So I'm gonna do like 1 pump for half of my face. Yep, that's a full coverage foundation right there. So not only the foundation type, but also the tools you use to apply the foundation are very important. I used to be a sponge kind of person like my whole life, but then I discovered that there are actually brushes that don't make your foundation look horrible. And my life changed forever. So, you know, just because you didn't have a great time with a brush once or twice doesn't mean that it's not for you. It still could be for you. There we go. Excessive amount of matte foundation on your matte primer. Love it. But this is genuinely what I used to do because I thought that covering up everything is gonna work the best if I have like a super full coverage foundation. But it does feel a little like too much on the skin. It really feels like a lot. And on the other side of my face, which is our nicely hydrated side, I would go in with this one. This is the L'Oreal True Match Nude Plumping Tinted Serum. I just kind of found out that less is more, and that hydrating foundations just kind of work better for my face because it really needs to be hydrated. It doesn't need to be hidden. All you have to do is like make your, skin happy, and then it's gonna look way better just out of principle. I kind of switched to like more medium coverage because I feel like it looks a lot better, especially when you wear it for a long time, which I usually tend to do. Your light coverage foundation is gonna look a lot better after 14 hours of wear because it kind of like fades naturally than your full coverage matte foundation. Of course, it depends on your skin, but on my skin, that definitely happens. Of course, the coverage is way different. We have 2 very different foundations. On this side, we have the Fenty one, which is literally like a full coverage matte, it's supposed to be like that perfect face kind of foundation. And it does I look covered. However, this side, surprisingly, the coverage is also very nice. And here you can see a lot of the glow, a lot of the sheen. It feels, of course, a little bit stickier because it's not a matte foundation. But I feel like on my skin, they look kind of similar. Like, it's not like a super glam and like super garbage. Not at all. And this feels great. So, another tip, pick a right foundation for your skin. Like, the worst thing I used to do was picking out concealer shades. Like, I don't even know when did I start to pick the right concealer. I feel like somebody had to like help me or tell me that you don't need to go like 5 shades lighter if you want to cover your under eye bags. What I would do typically would be using like a full coverage concealer. I have the ColourPop No Filter Concealer here. That would be like a couple shades lighter than my skin. I was never really like a triangle under your eye kind of gal, but I was definitely a bit like using too much concealer kind of gal, so. Okay, the nose is just gonna be full coverage, I'm sorry. And I would just be very into like highlighting my whole T-zone. Okay, so you can clearly see where I applied the concealer. This one's not like super light, but I would usually go even like a shade or two lighter. But it's very, very high coverage, and you have to be very careful to like blend it into the foundation properly, because otherwise you're just gonna have like a streak where the concealer meets the foundation and that looks just horrible. I wouldn't really recommend this now. What I do like to use now is something like this one. It's the Maybelline Superstay Concealer. Lightweight. Like the most lightweight concealer you can get is always better, because you're gonna work in like thin layers, and I feel like thin layers are everything when it comes to makeup application. So I would just do like a very small amount of concealer where I really need it, but on the chin, because I still enjoy the highlighting in the T-zone. I do, just not as drastically. And you can see that this concealer is a little bit less like super, super lighter. Do I look that different? I don't know. It feels very different. Like on the full coverage side, I can definitely like feel everything just not really working that well. I don't think my under eye bags look worse or better at any side really. The full coverage side just, I don't know. It looks like a lot of product, but it's covered very similarly. So I just feel like for the long term, for like a longer period of wear time, a lighter concealer in like terms of texture, a lightweight concealer is going to always wear better than like a super thick, super high coverage concealer. And one of the reasons is because of powdering. So if you don't powder your face at all, and I know there are people like that, I envy you very much. But my like fear of getting my face imprinted on my clothing is very real. So I always powder my face just because of this like I don't want to transfer anywhere kind of thing. What I always used to do though is set my under eyes like separately. It was just a technique that I feel like always worked for me no matter what. So that's what I'm gonna do today as well. And for that, I'm gonna use one of my powder puffs and a sponge. As you know, I used to be into sponges, and I would use dry sponge to set my under eyes every time. And I would usually be into like very, very like matte and long wear-ish powders, at least the ones that promised long wear. Like the Maybelline Fit Me, which I do not really like, but it's exactly the kind of powder I would use. And that brings me to another tip of mine. Not all powders are the same. In fact, almost no powders are the same. And there's a lot of difference in the texture, in how finely milled they are, in like how dry they are, how much of like the natural sheen they take away. And there's like, I feel like there are so many differences in powders that you don't know unless you try more powders, which I understand people don't want to do that. But seriously, just settling for one matte powder someone told you is good is just not fine. So I would pick it up on my sponge, kind of roll it off, and set my under eye. And like this area where I have the worst pores. It's not baking, it's just like pushing the powder onto your skin. And I used to do that on the daily. I'm not sure how much you can see, but there is like quite a lot of smoothness happening right now. But there is like this weird, my skin just looks a little old in places. But when it comes to like the other powders, this one from Revlon, I did mention it recently, but this really is a great powder that is not too matte. It doesn't look as heavy as the Maybelline one. It still wears really well, but it doesn't make you look like super old and textured. When I talk, I do a lot of movement with my face and with my eyes in particular. So sooner or later, my skin is gonna like crinkle and the concealer is gonna look all fucked, and it just happens. So what I wanna do is make the layer as thin as possible, so there's not much to like wrinkle up. And quite frankly, yeah, like the method is kind of similar, right? Because I take my powder puff, pick up some powder, dab it off and set it, but it's like a very different amount of powder, and I just kind of like go over it a couple times with the same puff, not picking up more, and it's set. This is the difference. Here you have like the full coverage. I'm not even sure you can really see, and on this side you have like the less coverage and like less matte powder. And to me there's like a great difference. Even when I like move my eyes like this, I feel like on this eye you can really see like a lot. But this eye just looks a little bit, better, less old. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm trying to say, I think. That's the under eye. That's like, or like setting the concealer in general. Like powders are difficult. Before we get into the rest of the face, I also want to talk about creams. Cream products changed my whole goddamn life because they just look so much better than only powder sometimes. I never used to use creams and like liquids because I always just thought it's gonna screw up my base, like by default, you know? It's liquid, it doesn't belong in my makeup routine, I don't want to use that. But it's so not true because cream products and liquid blushes and stuff like that, they can make your makeup look so much more lively, like so much more like it's melted in your face. I don't want to say the word natural because it's still makeup, okay? But it can look a lot less like you're just layering different powders and a lot more like this mesh of colors and textures and different tones and stuff. If you feel like something's too heavy on you, something's too much on you, maybe a cream version of it would be a lot more natural and a lot less, you know, feeling like it doesn't belong. I'm gonna use my Rare Beauty bronzer stick on my, you know, natural-ish side. And the thing with these is you don't really need a lot. You really need just this and you're good to go. So these products tend to last forever. There we go. See? Now this brings me to the placement issue because where you put your bronzer and your blush is very important because your face can be like, you know. Now I usually put my bronzer a lot higher than I used to. I used to put it like all the way here, which I'll show you in a minute, but now I'm kind of like looking for that little shadow and placing it on top of this bone. So I want the bronzer to be kind of like here, but also here. So I'm more like lifting it upwards rather than blending it as a contour, because it's not a contour, okay? If I want a contour, I'll do that. But if I want to bronze, I want to bring it up a little bit higher where the sun would actually hit my face structure, which sounds like of course, but it wasn't really an of course back at the day. And with a blush, it's very similar. I'm gonna take the Fenty Beauty cream blush in the shade Petal Poppin' because I really like this blush. It's like a pink. It's the same deal. Like you don't want to put your blush here. Like I have a big face. I have these like hamster cheeks. I don't want to make them even more hamster looking. So I would just like take a little bit of the blush. It's not very pigmented. It's like very beginner friendly. And I want to put it like here. Yeah, like I kind of want it here at the temple because I just like the way it looks, but that's just me. And I want to have it like this. I don't want it to go like here. No. I think this is plenty. Yeah, and you can kind of like push it back with one of your foundation brushes. And it just looks very nice. And I feel like it kind of lifts my face and gives me like a little bit narrower face because it's all kind of like stripe in here. And I still don't mind how it looks from the side as well. So this is how I do it now. Now let me set my face and do the powder matte side. So for my like old school face, again, I'll use the Fit Me powder. I'm gonna use the powder brush I used to use all the time. It's this one from Gabriela Salvete. It's a little disgusting, but who cares? You know, big, fluffy, kind of dense. We all used to have them, so I would just kind of dip it in and go in. So, and it was just all about stamping motion because you always had that vision like you wanna push the powder into the skin. I used to over apply powder so much. Now I just kind of touch my face and I'm like, is this too sticky for me to wear? And if it is, I add more powder. If it's fine, then I leave it. Because the less powder you put on, the better it looks. Because really, if you put in too much powder, it's just going to start mixing weirdly with everything and it's not going to look good. And also, it's not called a setting powder for no reason, okay? It really is going to set the makeup. So you just got to have some faith and not over apply because it's going to look like garbage. So this is our flawless face with a lot of matte and a lot of powder. Do you see all this texture under my eye? I don't think you really can see that. It's a lot. It's a lot. So there's that. And for the other side of my face, I'm going to use this. Listen, I would love to recommend this brush to you, but it's from AliExpress, so I can't. But it's like super, it's like not dense at all. It's like half the density of the first brush. I just pick up some powder and then we swirl we swirl. And this is like a lot different technique. So you don't want to like push the face at all. You almost just want to like glaze it with that powder. And as you kind of lightly buff it, it's going to really, really, really mix in with the foundation and create like this beautiful, flawless, and very nicely set face without the feeling of, you know, having a pound of powder on you. This is the like swirled face. And I feel like this just looks infinitely nicer, to me at least, because that's how I do my makeup now, so I better like it, right? You can definitely see a lot more of my skin peeking through, but at the same time, you wouldn't look at me and think like, okay, she's wearing like a 50 layers of makeup, right? Over here, maybe 25, not 50, but certainly some makeup. Looking for hydrating powders and applying them the right way definitely changed my base maybe the most, because I feel like one of the mistakes I used to do was putting on like a super heavy foundation with a lot of powder. I would just be like losing my mind over why is my skin looking so bad. And now I'm gonna come back to this side. So I would just like to show you how I used to bronze my face. Okay, so I'll use the Beauty Bay bronzer in the shade Fawn, because this is very much like the bronzers I used to use. I used to use bronzers that were a little too dark, very, very matte. There was a thing for matte bronzers I used to have, I don't even know why, but just looking flat and dead was a thing, I guess. I still have the bronzer brush I used to use. It's hard to break out of the new habits now, but I'm gonna try to put the bronzer where I used to. So I really used to think of it as a contour, which means I would go like this. Oh yeah, literally like this. And then I would do my forehead. Now I don't do my forehead because I have bangs, but I think that's pretty accurate. So you can clearly see that it's almost like from here lower, and on the other side it's literally the opposite. It's like from here up. Of course you can see it a lot less now. Now I would go in with something more like this, the glowish bronzer from Huda, which is almost like a sheeny bronzer. The brush doesn't really matter, I think, because I still use both of these, but I would definitely like top the bronzer off a little bit. But again, I like the higher part of the cheek. Forehead if we're really feeling fancy. I'm getting some flashbacks over here. Now with a blush. So this is the Kathleen Lights and Colourpop Lunar Hazard blush. I used to use the shit out of this. And I still like it a lot. It's a great blush. And I would just go in. Like I was kind of starting off at my cheek and go in like towards my eye. I mean, it's not like really bad, but it creates like this weird blotch of color, and I like this blush, I actually do, but this whole like placement creates like a huge spot of nothing. And it's not the blush shade, trust me, it's really not. So here, I'm gonna go back with something a little bit more pinky. This is the Air Blush Glow from Catrice in the shade Cloud Wine. Beautiful blush. And today I'm a little bit more like a thin brush kind of gal. So I just swirl, tap off, and then yeah, if I want to revive it a little bit, because I feel like the powder really killed the whole blushy vibe. Over here, we're very much like in the face. Over here, we're a lot more like here, which will look a bit different with my hair because, of course, it also connects to the hair, to everything. This is kind of how I would use the blush and the bronzer and everything. Now, with a highlight, I'm going to use the same highlight. I'm going to use the Steph Tom's Cookies and Cream. It's a collab she has with Ofra, which is a great, great highlighter. I used to be kind of like a big C kind of gal, so I would start off here and really just go ahead and highlight everything. And today I'm more like just a cheek and a little here. It's not that much of a difference really, but this the glowy cheek is not something I want anymore. So I'm really trying to focus a bit more on the placement. I used to highlight under my brow bone, but gotta admit I haven't done that in a minute. You know why we used to do that? Because our face was so matte and lifeless that we had to fake it back. We had to fake the sheen back. Where on this side, I don't really have to fake the sheen back, it's still there. And last but not least, the setting spray. Listen, setting spray is important no matter what. I feel like if you use only powders, it's going to really help like melt them together with your face. If you use creams and you go a little bit lighter like I did here, it's still pretty important because it helps, you know, the longevity of your makeup, which are just all great causes. So I'm just going to use my Morphe Continuous Setting Mist. And also, very importantly, wait for it to dry. So now that the face is done, the real question is there a difference? So what do you think? Is there a difference? Besides the tones, I feel like there are many differences in many categories over here, okay? First of all, clearly the blush placement and the bronzer placement and everything. I feel like this face is being kind of almost like dragged down, and just it doesn't look as good as this side does, and that's why I keep doing my makeup that way, because with the hair, just having like a super prominent blush right at the back almost looks like the hair is casting like a shadow, and I just really like that. Also, a difference is in the feel. This side of my face feels noticeably heavier than this side. So here I don't even feel like I have makeup on. Here it's like very obvious to me that I do, and I understand that this is kind of the feeling that makes people go like, no, I don't want to wear makeup. I hate it. If everything feels like this much, I understand why you don't want to wear it every day. But this is fine. This is like a cream. It's okay. I've had this makeup on for like an hour. Of course, I poked myself in the eye a couple minutes ago. So if you see any mascara marks on my bottom lash line, yeah, they're there. I feel like there's quite a difference in like various areas. I'm going to try to show you, but it's very hard. I feel like on this side, my nose and just overall around my mouth and over here where I move, it doesn't look great. And even my pores in this area, my smile lines seem a lot more like noticeable. I barely have any. If you look on the other side, there's a part of my nose that doesn't look the best. It's usually like this crack right here, but that is fine. I'm used to that. But my skin on the actual nose and like in this area looks a lot more smooth. And even if this is just because there's not as much product, I think it's a good argument for why not to go like super insane over full coverage. Do you feel like this side of my face needs to cover more? Because I don't. If you don't want to, you don't have to go crazy over your full coverage makeup and full coverage concealer and full coverage everything. Because, like, what's your use case? Like, do you want to look like you don't have any facial features, or what's the point? Because my point usually is to add some color to my face, to feel better about myself. And for that, I don't think I need to cake on like a ton of full coverage foundation. I just don't. Do I feel better about myself that this side of my face feels like I'm carrying like a dumbbell? No, it doesn't. This makes me feel a lot better. So basically what I was trying to say in this video is just think when you do your makeup. Does it feel good? Does it look good? Do you think it's good? If any of those answers is no, then don't do it. So maybe you should just stop relying on information from people who have different skin and different needs and different makeup skills. And, you know, try to find something more suitable for you. And that's basically all I wanted to say. Do you like any of these sides better? I sure do. Tell me if you see a difference, or if you have any other makeup tips you would like to share with people. The comment section is all yours. So thank you very much for watching. Consider subscribing. And if you want to see more videos where I talk about makeup, you can check out the playlist. See ya!